Afua Kuma's Jesus is unbreakable, unstoppable, and unshakable, inviting all who want to come to him and enjoy his endless largesse. Who is this Afua Kuma? Hello, welcome to Wordnet Productions. Welcome to another edition of Word in the World. And this time we are with Jon Kirby, the Provincial of USW Province, who has written a new book, fresh out of the press. The title of the book is The Surprising African Jesus, The Lost Prayers and Praises of Afua Kuma. Now you know the Afua Kuma that I was speaking about. Jon, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming to Wordnet. When I was going through some of the things from the poems, so also about the life of Afua Kuma, it kind of intrigued me, and I said, who is this person? She's illiterate, but at the same time, she's so profound with her experience, and the way she experienced Jesus and explains or expresses is so different from anyone else. So I want to definitely, or I'm sure not just me, our listeners also want to know more about the Jesus experience of Afua Kuma that you have narrated and explained in this book. So please tell us, who is this Afua Kuma?
Well, my first experience of her blew me away. I was on my motorbike traveling the 500 miles from Accra on the coast up to my mission station far in the north.
By the way, let's tell the audience, Accra is in Ghana, the capital of Ghana, and Jon was a missionary to Ghana, as a Divine Word missionary to Ghana for 36 years, and he did a lot of wonderful things that we will come in the process of our dialogue. Please continue, Jon.
Well, anyway, I was on my way up. I was the furthest up north in Ghana that we have a mission. And in fact, it was with people who had never been missioned before. People had never seen a white man, for example. And I was on my way up, and about 150 miles up, I stopped at one of our regular mission stations. This is in the forest region of Ghana, the southern part. And my friend there said, Jon, there's something you've got to see. And I said, oh, what is it? He usually doesn't get so excited, but he brought me to the hospital. We have a hospital there, St. Joseph's. And brought me to this wide open ward. And there was a group of people and a rumbling noise down at the other. It was like a staccato, like a machine gun shooting off. And clickety, clackety, clickety, clack was a woman saying Twi words, and I didn't quite get them because I was far away, and I speak Twi very well.
What is Twi?
Twi is the language of one of the peoples of Ghana. The Asante people probably have heard of them. Asante is one of the dialects of Twi. Is it's one of the major languages of Ghana. Okay. It is the major language of Ghana, in fact. There are 64, but that's one of them. And it's the language of the south, the forested region. And all of the people in their beds were looking over, craning their necks to see, what was there in the corner. And the doctors and nurses and people who had come to visit their relatives had left their relatives and gone to see this woman. She was just there praying for this person over in the corner. And I went over to listen, and it was incredible. And I looked around at the people, and their jaws had dropped. They just and they were mesmerized. They'd never seen this before, anything like this before. And the sound, it was like rapping. It was like rapping. Yeah. In fact, I'm sure that's where rapping came from.
Possible.
And it was just clickety, clackety, clickety, clack. And it was a special language that is used only heard in Asante royal courts to praise the chief. Only specially trained praise singers could do this. And it wasn't praising the chief, it was praising Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard anything like this before, but I was searching for it. I had yearned for this, and I could tell that the people around were also yearning for this.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. And
And
she's
they were
illiterate.
Huh?
She's illiterate, right?
She's completely illiterate, born in 1905, and just raised up a completely rural lady, had her own little farm. She worked in her farm, as all women did,
Uh-huh.
men too, in the South. Had a few chickens and sheep and goats, and just lived a regular life of a woman. But I came later to find that she was invited to every Christian jamboree, multi-denominational, whatever denomination, Catholics, Methodists, Anglican, all the major denominations, but especially the Pentecostals. They all loved her, and they couldn't believe it. It combined all of the different denominations into one, which was their culture, their language and culture, put in their words. It was their Jesus. This woman was speaking their Jesus, and it was just so moving to them.
Anytime she did this so-called, and as you say,
Yeah.
try to compare it to the rap music of today.
It was very much like rap, with
Did
staccato.
she repeat anything, or every time it was new?
It was always new, always came up with stuff. She repeated themes. She would
Okay.
talk about Jesus who manifested himself in all the wonderful things we see around us. She'd talk about the devil and all the ways that he entices us and destroys our life, and all the ways he brings us down, puts us in the mud, and Jesus who lifts us out of the mud. She would talk about the priests and those who will lead us on and help us move our lives closer to God. She would talk about all of these things using metaphors that grew out of their daily experience.
Now, John, you've been there for 36 years
Yeah.
as a missionary. So also you are a specialist on anthropology. So
Yes.
also cultural or related studies. You started a institute called the Tamale Institute, where lots of our priests as well as religious and other people from outside Ghana, so also from within, came and you trained them and you taught them about the cultural and anthropological aspects. Now, the people of Ghana, are they tribal?
There's two major areas of Ghana: the south, which is forested, and the north, which is dry. And the peoples of the south are they speak somehow related languages, but not understandable, not mutually
Twi.
understandable. One of them is Twi,
Okay.
but the others are like Ga and Ewe are quite different. But the themes that come up in the characters of these people are very much are close. And the peoples of the north, their languages, there are 42 languages in the north, and they are way different from the people of the south.
Now, I asked that question because, as I understand, most of the tribal culture has also a kind of a tribal religion, and most of the times the tribal religion, like if you look at, let's say, the Native American culture, it has a lot of connection to the nature, so also
Absolutely.
to animism, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely,
do
yes.
they also have that kind of a slant
Yes.
to any of this?
Yes, they do. All of the tribes, you can say the nature, the religion is African religion, and there are certain characteristics that are there across the board. For example, the earth, Mother Earth. The earth is an entity in itself and the source of God's presence. And of course, there's God Himself, but people cannot relate to God because He's you can't even appeal to God because God is so great. You dare not do it. And one only appeals to the other gods through one's ancestors because it's through through your ancestors that you got introduced in the first place to these other gods.
So ancestors are kind of the path towards that
Towards-
great God.
They would always say when they make a sacrifice, uncle, grandfather, take this and give it to the God, you know.
There you go, see,
and then
exactly.
we get what we need from him. Yeah.
Now, you know, speaking about this, about Afua Kuma and her poems, did they also reflect some of her tribal background and tribal belief system,
They, not the,
or affected? You know, I'm sure.
not the, yes, the wonderment towards nature and everything is no longer put on the basis of nature or the gods of the earth. It's put in terms of God now. All of the beautiful things, all of the wonderful powers that are in nature that that Ghanaians used to ascribe to different entities are all ascribed to God now. And she has done something that no missionary was able to do. We missionaries, not my time, but the time before mine, in the 30s and 40s, missionaries would come and destroy all the fetishes, all the gods, thinking that would do it.
Yeah,
And of course they didn't. They would just hide it and then go back.
exactly. Yeah.
I remember one time when I was working in the South, it was my first mission station. There'd be drums every Saturday night up on top of the mountain. And I, after I have my mass, in the evening I walk around and I heard the drums that Sunday night. I went up and checked it out, and there was Mama Yezu giving her speech about God and so forth.
Mama
and
Yezu.
Mama Yezu. And who was there but my own parishioners? They were all there. So people are, I started to realize from that point on that we are not hitting it. We're not connecting with the people. It's not about language. I spoke the language. It's about the underneath, what's underneath it. And it's not even about, there were African priests when I was there too. It's not even African priests. It's the metaphors they use, the language, the bringing people close to the world that they understand. And Afua Kuma was able to do that more than any person I've ever experienced. She is has brought about a dramatic change in Ghanaian ways of worship. Dramatic.
We are talking about Jon Kirby's new book. Here it is. And we have been talking about Afua Kuma, who is the first, let's say, author of this book, because it's all
First
her.
author, absolutely, yes.
Because it is all the poems and the praises that she sang, which John has compiled and translated into English. We're going to continue with this discussion, and John is going to share more about Afua Kuma, so also about the book. Please don't go away. Stay.
Do you want to fall in love with God? I'm sure we all want to. The Book of Psalms contains the directions. Thousands of years ago, people like you and me talked to God out of the depths of their hearts, revealing an intimate love. Psalms are the expression of the faith in God by people around 3,000 years ago. God was not a mere abstract creator, but was present, involved, and a real person of power and emotions. Now, when we read or listen to the Psalms, we can know the intensity of this love. Entering into the influence of the Psalms, we can find a path to know and love God. To know more about the Psalms, you should get a copy of Father Mike Manning's booklet, The Psalms. It will help you to understand the 150 Psalms better, as he has categorized them. He uses the technique of acts: adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, and supplication. Get your copy today and know the categories. Learn to pray with the Psalms.
Call the number on the screen or email us. You can also get it through our website. Get your copy today.
Welcome back. We're having a wonderful discussion with Father Jon Kirby on his latest book, The Surprising African Jesus, The Lost Prayers and Praises of Afua Kuma. And in the last segment, we've been sharing about Afua Kuma, so also about the cultural background of the people that he worked with in Ghana. John, you mentioned that she had a special way of expressing her understanding and love for Christ. Because when I was going through this book, I found that she compared Jesus to a warrior or a hunter.
Sure, these are, first of all, the term for warrior and hunter are the same in her language.
Oh.
And it's related to power. These are the most powerful people. They can take down, they're able to bring food. The food is from the hunt.
Uh-huh.
And they're able to destroy their enemies. And these are the powerful things that Africans need, control over the forces of nature and the forces of their enemies. So these are
I liked that kind of imagery because even in the Bible, Jesus uses similar imageries.
Absolutely, he does.
And imageries, I think, are best way to relate with people. And Jesus used the symbol, and probably the most widely used example would be Good Shepherd. He says, "I am the Good Shepherd,"
Yes.
and then he's comparing it with God. And we also have a reference of the shepherd from the Psalm, David saying, the shepherd leading the sheep to the pastures, to running water, feeding them. So I'm sure for her, for Afua Kuma, this was her way of expressing that caring, loving, compassionate Jesus, God, right? Can you read some of those
Sure.
Those poems, because you have translated them, some of those poems that relate or communicate similar kind of ideas and thoughts?
The nature connection is so important. Jesus, the unmovable one, he plants his farm in the river. See him at work in the water, growing his yams in the river. The surging rivers of Senchi. That's a river in Ghana. Jesus has come from the river. His priests are come along with him. They carry great headloads of food, a bountiful feast for the widows. Children are crying this morning, yet widows, do not be afraid. Jesus has hitched up his horses and mounted his caterpillar to carry home plenty for all. You widows, do not be disturbed. Bring your empty stomachs to him. Let them be filled with his fare. He tells the children not to cry, to come for their meat and be filled, the meat of the young wild bull. So let us gather together and joyfully don our kente cloth,
What is
the
this
royal
kente?
garb fit
Oh,
for
okay.
the feast.
Okay,
Yes.
royal garb.
Yes.
Read another one.
Okay. He has made his priests the victors. Jesus helps those who offer help, those who give themselves to others. They get all the help they need from him. The priests are coming to Jesus, performing on stringed instruments. Young warriors rise up before him. They come to praise and adore him. You cannot escape from Jesus. If you try to run from him, you are running away in vain. He will not attempt to follow, but be with you just the same. Sechi is the thick, misty fog that is not afraid of people. Sechi is Jesus. We are encompassed by this cloud, but you, O Lord, are not afraid to lead your enemy through the midst. Your hurricane winds crush cities. He is Kwafuramatechi, the laughing chimpanzee. If you should meet our enemies, he slays them with his smiling face. That is what laughing Jesus does.
This is very similar to, if you, as we read through, you understand that this is very similar to what we have in the Bible, the book of
The
Psalms.
Psalms, yeah, very
It's all
similar.
in praise and describing who God is. And she's
Yes.
also trying to describe from her perspective.
She also describes her own life. She says, listen,
Huh?
the things I have done weighed on me. I have borne them on my chest. But he has tied his cloth to mine and lifted the weight off my chest. These things weighed heavily on me. I have carried them on my back. But he has tied his cloth to mine and has taken them off my back. He is the strongest of fetishes. We put our confidence in him to buy us a 2-story house. That's what everybody wants, a 2-story. Jesus is the giant needle that cannot be found in a bag. It is hidden in the lining. Jesus farms his fish in the stream, where they multiply and grow fat. The fattest of these he gives to us. Those huge herrings and fat catfish are offered by River Afram.
What is that going to be about? The piece that you're going to read now?
It's about the devil.
Oh, okay.
One day we heard a frightful noise. Our enemy ran over to see. The devil stood there, petrified, just shouting and screaming in pain. He heard that Jesus is coming. Then, terrified, he screams in pain. By this we are taught a lesson. The devil is a deceiver. He comes only to tell us lies. When Jesus comes, the devil weeps. Satan weeps blood. Whenever Jesus approaches, the wards of heaven go there, making devils scream in pain. When Jesus comes, the devil screams. The devil and his followers were cast into a blazing pit prepared for them. Let all the nations shout, Amen. He is the knife that cuts through iron. Him we will not run to inform. He, the mighty man most feared, we will not let the slightest breeze blow him a hint of our troubles. When we went to Jerusalem, Jesus was not there with his priests. He was already crucified. It was his name that rescued us. So try to be peaceful and calm. Allow your enemies to come. If the priests merely say his name, in that instant your foes are dead. Jesus' name will shatter their ranks, will drive misfortunes from our midst, and will cast them into the sea.
Now, John, tell me now, she's an illiterate woman.
Yes.
How did you collect all this?
Well, we collected it with recording.
She didn't write it down.
Yeah, that was in 78 and 79. I and my friends collected many recordings, did recordings of her at different events where she prayed. She would always be asked by congregations to pray for them, or starting a big fiesta, they would ask her to lead the prayers. And just to draw people, she would draw people from miles around. And she never asked money for her prayers. She would do them because that was what God has given her to do. But she grew up in a chief's court and heard these things from her youth. So she was familiar with this language, which normal people barely understand. In fact, when we had to do the first translation, the younger people couldn't do it at all. Had to be an older person and had to be with her direction. And that was Joseph Kwachi, who, because he still remembered her back in those days. We did them in 78, and then all the tapes, I made a book back then. And then her fame spread, and 5 years ago they asked me to do another book here for the people of the Northern Hemisphere. And of course she was dead in 87 she died, and all the tapes were gone. So we had to search finally we found one tape, and from that Joseph Kwachi, we had to get in touch and find out where he was, because this is many years later. He was still around. He was able to give a basic translation in Twi. First he did the transliteration in Twi, and then he did the basic Twi, a basic Ghanaian English translation, and then I did many other translations to get the rhythm and get the power of
The flow
get the flow and so forth, this staccato beat.
Yeah.
And so finally I was able to capture some of that, the movement.
Now, where can we get this book?
Amazon
Amazon?
or the Wipf & Stock is the publisher.
There's the publishers.
Yeah, but Amazon has it on sale. so-
Okay.
And it's in different forms: hardback, softback,
Yeah.
soft paperback, and Kindle.
Kindle, okay.
So-
Does it also have an audio version of it?
No,
or
not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe I'll get around to doing that
Okay,
possibly.
okay. Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful. It's wonderful. In fact, one of the things that drew me was the kind of language. Of course, you translated it, and the language is so beautiful. You immediately get to read. As you read, you remind yourself of the Psalms.
Sure.
And it is so beautiful. It is,
Yes.
and I'm so intrigued that such a simple woman who never knew anything to read or write was able
I'll tell you what
Uh-huh.
happened. It was I heard this early on. It hasn't been verified by anyone else, but anyway, she was going through a rough patch, difficulties and so forth, and the prayers that they used in church, she loved God and she wanted to pray to Him, but she felt they didn't match her feelings. She couldn't get into her prayers. And so she had a dream one night, and an angel appeared to her in the dream and just said, "Speak from your heart, speak from your heart." And then she woke up and she was saying these words. So she attributes it to an angel giving her permission to just speak from her heart. And this is what comes out.
Thank you so much. Thanks for
You're
compiling her work and making it available to a lot of people here, as you said, in the Northern Hemisphere. And so also that the fact that it is in English and beautiful language, everyone can read and enjoy it. So also
Yes.
use it in order to praise God. A new way of approach to praise and understand the God that we believe. So if you get a chance, please, from Amazon, get the book, The Surprising African Jesus, The Lost Prayers and Praises of Afua Kuma.
And there's 100 pictures, 100
Yes.
photographs that match what she's talking about, and they're in color. Beautiful.
Please get it, make this as a copy of your own. So also continue to support our ministry. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed this dialogue, and I'm sure you're all going to get this book. Take care and be blessed.